Nearly 6 in 10 Americans don't have enough savings to cover a $500 or $1,000 unplanned expense. That is absolutely horrifying, since if something goes wrong, you will have to take unnecessary loans or, God forbid, pay a credit card interest. They could go up to 20 or even 30%. You have to be a moron to pay that much interest. But what else can you do if you have no other option? But even those who actually save money reportedly said that they don't have much in their savings. Of course, savings went significantly higher during the pandemic era, since we're forced to stay at home and collect stimulus checks. But that's now hunting us down with the highest inflation in 4 decades. Despite the Fed's best efforts to keep raising the rates, that hasn't helped yet. Maybe if it wasn't for the Fed's action, things could have been much worse. But we'll never know that, since we don't have a machine that could take us to an alternative reality. When almost 60% of the population says that they have less than $1,000 in their savings account, you know that we have a problem. Because $1,000 is probably not even enough to cover the rent. What happens if you get sick, get into an accident, or get fired? What do? I get it, it is not easy to save money when we are surrounded by so many things that are pushing us to spend. Even before the video started, you probably saw an ad that called you to visit their website to spend some money. But let me clarify something. Spending money isn't bad. There is nothing wrong with buying stuff you need or want. At the end of the day, what is the point of earning money? On top of that, spending is what drives the economy forward. Without enough spending, we will have a deflation that will slow down economic growth. What I see often happens is that people often complain that they can't save because they need to cover their basic expenses, but end up buying $5 coffees and avocado toast every morning. Again, there is nothing wrong with that, as long as you're saving a good size of your paycheck. I don't really support the idea of saving every penny possible, because life isn't just about saving money, it's about experiences. And part of that is having fun with friends and spending money. However, if you're at the beginning of your journey, you can't afford to spend every penny you earn. You need to build that capital that will work for you. The problem is that there are a few wealth killers that drain your budget the most. If you can get rid of them, you will be able to save a fortune. If you're ready, give this video a thumbs up and let's start with the first one. Number 1. A car. If you have ever owned a car, you probably know how expensive it is to have a car. In fact, a lot of people who drive don't know exactly how much their car costs. The average monthly payment on a new car is around $600 in 2020, but that's far from true cost of owning a car. And that's back in 2020. It is far more than that, since there is a shortage of chips and high inflation. And that's just your monthly payment without taking into account insurance, gas, and especially maintenance. What I also realized when I got my first car was how often I began to drive. I started driving everywhere, even when it was unnecessary. Gas is not cheap, especially now, and being stuck in the traffic every day can cost a fortune. But if you have a family, of course, owning a car makes sense, especially when public transport is not an option. But if you're single, for God's sake, save that money and invest it. You will thank me later. Number 2. Bad habits. Take a look at how much people spend on alcohol, for example. A fortune. $20 here or $30 there don't seem like much. But if you add it up over the course of a month, it will add up. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Americans spend about 1% of their gross annual income on alcohol. For the average household, that is around $600 a year or $6,000 in 10 years, or a whopping $22,600 over a 40-year period. That doesn't seem much, but don't be fooled by this number. It takes into account all Americans, including those who don't drink or those who drink like once or twice a year. So if you only take into account those who drink regularly, that number would be much higher. A few $100s a month is normal for a regular drinker. The same goes for smoking, gambling, and other bad habits. The average cost of a pack of a cigarette is around $6 to $7, which means a pack-a-day habit sets you back $188 per month, or $2,292 per year. These numbers might not tighten you, but if you also account the opportunity cost, you will probably get rid of these habits immediately. If you throw that $2,292 every year into an index fund with a 7% return, with the power of compound interest, you can expect to have more than $365,000 in 40 years. Add to that the medical bills that you will get as a result of your bad habits, and you might as well go bankrupt. Number 3. Spending money on impressing people. Back when I was in school, my self-esteem was really low because I was doing poorly in school. But as social creatures, we want to be respected by the people around us, want to be valued because we have so many insecurities. And often, when we don't know how to solve these insecurities, we spend money to show everyone that we're as good as them. Why do you think people buy Rolex watches? Let's be honest, a Rolex watch is literally solving the exact same problem, which is telling the time. But even Rolex holders often use their phones to take a look at the time. But people still spend dozens of thousands of dollars on them because they have successfully branded themselves as a luxury brand that is worn by famous and successful people. So we buy them to send a message to people around us. Look guys, I make a lot of money. I can afford a Rolex. Most people buy that kind of a watch to impress people, which is not a problem if you can easily afford that. But if you can barely afford a Mercedes and still decide to buy it, you have just thrown yourself into a huge financial problem. Number 4. Paying high interest rates. Credit cards are great. It is probably the best way to build your credit score and maintain it. It is extremely important because it will help you to get loans and lower interest rates. But here's when things get terrible. When you use a credit card to pay for things you cannot afford, what ends up happening is that you will not be able to cover your credit card debt at the end of the month, and the interest starts rolling. Have you ever considered how high credit card interests are? They could go as high as 20 or 30%. The interest on your mortgage would seem like peanuts in front of credit card rates. That might not seem like a big deal, but 41% of credit card users reported that they are failing to pay their bills on time, and that's what these banks are counting on. They want you to forget. No wonder why total credit card debts have risen to almost $1 trillion nationally. So don't you ever get a credit card if you can't control your spending habits, especially if you have some really bad habits. Number 5. Chasing women. What is certain about life is that there will always be women around you who will attract you, and if you can't control yourself, you're screwed. The world is filled with them. But what is also certain is that your time and resources are also limited. Even if you have $100 million, it is easy to spend that money on women in a glimpse of an eye. What is more important than money is that time. The time you could be spending building your business, side hustle, or whatever that will generate real wealth. Unless you learn how to control your urge to chase women, you will never reach financial independence, because there will always be women on whom you will waste whatever savings you have saved. These are just 5 out of many wealth killers, but they are probably the top. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and until the next one.